Man, I have been dying to dive into this. Jeremy here, your local film critic, and I realized it's high time I took a blowtorch to one of your beloved movie stars. Reviewing this series and the laundry list of talent I've tackled, I noticed that every one-note actor suffers from a unique kind of creative failure. Honestly, that's what makes ripping them apart such a blast. Still, I do my level best to keep things fair and balanced. J.Lo refuses to show vulnerability, Sydney Sweeney relies on her looks, and Vin Diesel has exactly one gear. Then there's Sylvester Stallone, whose problem is sheer monotony, a stubborn refusal to shift gears or let a role actually change his screen presence. It's funny because Stallone actually commits the crime everyone pins on Arnold. He jumps into diverse genres, but brings the exact same flat energy to every single one. The key distinction is that Schwarzenegger leaned into his shortcomings and carved out a space where that stiffness actually thrived. Stallone, however, talks a big game while recycling that same slurry-voiced sincerity and tough guy posturing no matter what the scene needs. He usually slides by partly because we like him, but mostly because top-tier filmmaking hides his flaws. I mean, look at Rambo. It's a masterpiece. The lighting and music carry all the emotional weight while he just stands there being wooden. People mistake the movie's gravitas for a nuanced performance. Rocky, Creed, and The Expendables. He's been one of the top earners in town for decades. You really have to stop and ask why. Why put him in parts that need nuance when his whole resume shows he's got zero range? He's basically bet his whole career on the idea that doing the same thing forever counts as talent. It doesn't. It's just a loop, and it's time someone said it. Ready to dive in? Why give him roles that demand depth when he's shown us time and again he can't pull it off? Mark my words, you'll regret this. Demolition Man paints this picture of a sterile, crime-free dystopia where being violent is literally against the law. John Spartan is a 20th century detective put on ice after a 1996 mission fails, only to be defrosted in 2032 to hunt down an old rival. The story leans hard into a culture shock. Spartan's old-school, violent policing style smacks right into a pacifist utopia that's banned guns and swearing. The story follows a guy trying to wrap his head around a world he doesn't recognize, eventually showing that his brutal, old-school ways are the only hope for this soft new society. The movie frames him as a relic whose skills are still vital. Stallone plays the role with a grumpy bewilderment that never feels like real psychological shock. He's a total fish out of water in a bizarre setting, yet he delivers every single line with that exact same gravelly tone he uses for everything. His confusion is all on the surface, just squinting at gadgets and making faces at the food instead of showing any real mental shock. Spartan ought to seem completely lost trying to navigate these bizarre new social norms and high-tech advancements. He treats being baffled like a personality quirk, acting like he's in some hacky comedy sketch about a confused boomer at a trendy coffee shop. Anyone want a matcha? How about a lavender strawberry latte? Seriously, what are you even ordering? He scowls, grumbles a bit, and then goes right back to his usual punch-first routine without learning a single thing. Since he won't actually show vulnerability or discomfort, the movie has to spoon-feed us explanations so we get what his character doesn't. Other characters have to constantly tell him what's wrong, and the script practically screams the emotions at us because his face simply isn't doing the job. It's like he stumbled onto the wrong set and just decided to give the same performance he gave last week. That blandness comes from his refusal to let a character's needs change his acting style. This role needed someone who could show the friction between old instincts and a new world. He just refuses to be anything but himself, so the whole movie has to bend over backwards to narrate what he's supposed to be feeling.
Not guilty.
I knew you'd say that.
Hey, wait a second. What are you doing?
Grenade! Grenade! Happy motoring.
Judge Dredd drops us into a massive city where cops are the entire legal system acting as the judge, the jury, and the guy who pulls the trigger. Dredd is the ultimate corporate soldier. He's a true believer who thinks he's the living hand of justice. After being set up and dumped in a frozen wasteland, the movie turns into a revenge story that's trying, and failing, to be a smart critique of a police state. It gives off major Equilibrium vibes, and you all should give me a hand, since I haven't brought that movie up in ages. Man, this guy is rough. Anyway, Dredd has to survive a lawless hellscape while figuring out that the entire system he fought for is rotten to the core. The whole plot revolves around whether he can actually grow, or if he's just a programmed machine who can't see injustice without losing his mind. He plays the character as totally rigid, which sounds right for a human weapon, but don't confuse being stiff with being a deep character. Dredd is supposed to be someone who literally can't imagine questioning an order because his whole life is built on doing what he's told. That's a goldmine for exploring how brainwashing ruins a person, but instead, we just get his standard tough guy routine. His flat voice and stiff body language aren't deliberate acting choices meant to show a programmed mind. That's just how Stallone acts in every movie. Meanwhile, the script needs Dredd to experience a total mental breakdown. When he finds out his mentor betrayed him and the system is a lie, he should be falling apart internally. His whole world should be cracking wide open. He just flips a switch from being a fascist cop to a rebel leader without any visible struggle. One minute he's an enforcer, the next he's a hero. This change happens solely because it's in the script, not because his acting shows the gut-wrenching pain of realizing your entire life was a lie. Blandness here comes from his failure to show how pain warps a person. Dredd returns from exile looking and acting exactly as he did before. It is the same monotone voice and cold wall. A role meant to show how ideology swallows a person becomes a case study in how an actor can completely fail to show any internal thoughts at all. This is still my favorite 1990s sci-fi flick. Do not let my thoughts on his acting ruin your experience. Take it easy, guys. Catch you later. Hey, Freddy, what happened here? Your fender is missing. She's pretty cute. Copland is a gritty thriller about Freddie Heflin, the half-deaf sheriff of a Jersey town where New York Police Department officers hide from the city's glare. The story tracks Freddie as he slowly realizes the heroes he's looked up to are actually running a criminal racket right under his nose. This movie was built to be a deep dive into a man facing his own spinelessness, someone who chose being liked over doing the right thing. The plot follows Freddie's move from a quiet witness to a man who finally demands accountability. It needs an actor who can show real shame and self-deception, portraying a guy who realizes he's traded his soul for a badge and is devastated by it. He packed on quite a few pounds for this, and people praised him for it. It shows effort, sure, but getting fat isn't the same as actually acting. He gives Freddie that same old detached vibe, just in a heavier body. Even the character's deafness feels like a gimmick, rather than something that actually impacts his life. He wears the extra weight like he's embarrassed by it, instead of using it to show how the character actually moves. Maybe I'm just being too picky. He leans into his usual mumbly intensity, making Freddie's quiet nature seem like a habit, instead of a result of years being ignored and alone. Freddie's journey should show us a man rotting from the inside, as he realizes his need for approval has made him a moral failure. He treats the big reveal like a checkbox on a list. When he finally fights back, it doesn't feel like a personal breakthrough, he's just following the script. The real problem is, he can't do internal conflict, he just reacts to information instead of letting the truth actually tear him apart emotionally. The weight gain became the headline because his actual acting was not strong enough to carry the movie. He spotted me and took off. He's still out there. Look, I don't know his location. I found the lost snowmobile, torched it, and burned all the evidence. Detox is a thriller about Jake Malloy, an FBI agent who's hit rock bottom with booze and trauma after losing his partner in a botched job. Jake checks into a remote rehab center for cops to get clean, only to find himself hunting a serial killer who's picking off the other patients one by one. The whole movie is about a guy trying to fix his broken mind while fighting for his life against a real-world monster. The film tries to show that his drinking is a way to numb the pain, and that getting better means he has to actually face his demons. The story rests on Jake's ability to show weakness while staying tough, admitting his flaws while still being a hero. He plays the part with a stony resolve, but it falls flat because he never actually shows the vulnerability of someone who's supposed to be in recovery. Playing an addict requires showing a soul in ruins, and the gap between who a man was and who he became. He brings his usual unshakable confidence to the role, making it look like addiction is just a minor annoyance rather than something that's destroyed his soul. His voice and delivery don't change at all whether he's wasted, sober, or crashing hard. You never get the feeling that his brain or emotions are actually struggling. The blandness comes from his refusal to let the character's mental state actually change how he acts. Jake is trying to get sober while hunting a killer. These two pressures should be creating some real tension. Stallone treats everything like a backdrop for his usual tough guy act. The rehab scenes feel totally hollow because Jake never reveals even a hint of real vulnerability. He sits in meetings and talks about his pain, but he never actually looks like a man who is hurting. Look, I wasn't expecting a masterpiece, but you'd hope for more from a $20 million paycheck. By the end, Jake's supposedly cured, but Stallone's acting shows zero internal growth. It's the same monotone voice and stiff movement, with no hint that addiction or recovery actually changed him. Jake magically gets clean because the script says so, just like his character in Time's Dread, **. In Time's Escape Plan, **, former prosecutor Ray Breslin makes a living testing high-security prisons, only to find himself trapped in a top-secret black site designed to be totally inescapable. The story tracks Ray as he meticulously maps the layout, identifies security holes, and plots his eventual breakout. The film presents Ray as a genius who uses his brain rather than his muscles to get the job done. The story depends on Ray's ability to think under pressure and stay sharp while they try to break him mentally. He plays Ray as a typical tough guy, which misses the point. The character was supposed to be defined by his mind. To pull this off, you need an actor who can show the wheels turning, someone who lets the audience watch a brilliant mind solve a complex puzzle. He approaches every scene with the same aggressive, physical energy he has used his whole career. Instead, he plays Ray like a caged brawler rather than a master strategist. His lines are just generic action tropes instead of sharp, analytical dialogue. While Ray should be calculating logistics and weighing options, Stallone just stands there looking intense rather than actually looking like he's solving a problem. The issue is Stallone's inability to play characters who win with their brains. He just forces his usual action hero energy onto a role that requires the exact opposite. Other characters have to constantly mention Ray's high IQ, because Stallone's acting doesn't show it. He relies on his usual shortcuts way too much in this movie. Ray feels like every other character he has played, just a tough guy using grit and muscle to beat the odds. The breakout plan ends up feeling pointless. Stallone's performance makes it clear this guy hits things to solve problems. He doesn't think them through. This film highlights how Stallone's lack of range makes every character feel exactly the same. Whether he's a genius or a brawler, you're getting the same energy every single time. These movies feel like they're made for social media clips that spoil the whole plot. Honestly, as a professional critic, these movies are just so cliché and dull. You can tell I'm over it, so let's hit the big highlights and finish this up. Donnie, why didn't you tell me sooner? Look, I wasn't sure I'd even win. Well, what does that matter? I don't know, man. Just tell me what to do. Creed. 2 Times is a legacy sequel, where Adonis Creed, now the champ, faces Victor Drago. He's the son of Ivan Drago, the guy who killed Adonis's dad back in Time's Rocky IV, The story focuses on trauma across generations. It asks if you can ever truly escape violence, or if it's just handed down like a family curse. Rocky mentors Adonis while facing his own aging and past regrets. The film treats boxing like a cycle where every new kid inherits the grudges of the old guard. Adonis has to choose between keeping the cycle alive or walking away. The plot relies on him growing up and realizing some wins just aren't worth the cost. Stallone plays Rocky as a guy facing his own irrelevance. He's no longer the star of the show. He's just the old coach slowly fading into the background. This role needs an actor who can show a quiet acceptance of getting older. Someone who's okay with passing the torch to a younger generation. But Stallone plays Rocky with that same old aggressive intensity, refusing to let the character actually step back and be small. Rocky should feel like a ghost haunting his own story. He's present, but he's becoming a side character who can't quite let go of the glory days. Instead, Stallone dominates every scene with his usual vibe, making Rocky's coaching feel like another power play. He just can't seem to play fading or weakened. The whole point of Rocky's arc is accepting that his era is over, and his job now is to guide, not to fight. Stallone plays him with the same rough confidence as the early films, like he hasn't actually learned anything about life or his own mortality. When Rocky deals with serious health issues or his own physical decline, Stallone acts like these life-altering problems are just minor inconveniences. He treats mentoring like another way to stay in the spotlight. You doing okay? It's not your fault, you know? You gave it your best. I did. You want to go for a ride? Go grab your boots. Rambo Last Blood is a gritty Western revenge tale disguised as a thriller. John Rambo is now an old rancher in Arizona who finds out a girl he cares for was kidnapped and sold by a Mexican cartel. The movie drops all the complex political themes for a basic revenge story. It's just an old man hunting down and killing bad guys. Haven't we seen this before? It's basically Rambo turned into a Death Wish plot. He's so full of hate that he's just waiting to go out in a blaze of glory. The story asks if he can find peace, or if he's just built for war. Stallone plays Rambo as a guy who's finally stopped lying to himself. He's a weapon, and that's all he'll ever be. The film makes it clear Rambo can't change. After 5 decades, his entire story has just been a slow walk toward accepting his own brutality. That's actually a great starting point for exploring how war permanently breaks a person's soul. It could show why some soldiers never truly come home because that home requires a person they're no longer capable of being. But Stallone just plays it like a basic action flick. The issue is Stallone's lack of interest in Rambo's mental breakdown. This is a man who lost his chance at peace a long time ago and has finally just given up. That requires an actor who can show a soul-crushing sense of hopelessness, someone for whom killing is no longer a choice, but a hollow identity that's eaten everything else. Stallone plays the revenge like it's a good thing. The movie makes the violence feel satisfying, like he's finally found his purpose rather than showing a man surrendering to his demons. He never shows us that Rambo is destroying his soul with this violence. Instead, it feels like the character is just being honest about his killer instincts. It totally misses the tragedy. The point is, he times can't times be anything else, not that being a killer was who he should have been all along. Asterisk, Last Blood times proves Stallone doesn't get the difference between finding peace and just quitting on life. Sly finally becomes that raw, simple hitman fans wanted. Just check out Logan if you haven't. Later, he makes a cameo as Stakar Gord in Guardians Volume 2, and has a bit part in the third. This role avoids drama, serving as a peripheral space captain who merely teases a much larger universe history. Ideally, such parts need nuance, yet Stallone plays this hero exactly like he plays everyone else here. He uses the same voice and the same tired walk. Honestly, it feels like he just sold his likeness so they could CGI his face onto a double and mail him a check. He says the lines, but the act is superficial and never deepens the character or the surrounding mythology. Ultimately, it perfectly summarizes his career, doing the bare minimum while letting the world building provide the substance. Every performance shows his refusal to change, playing the same stoic, abrasive guy across wildly different films. Need vulnerability or brains? It doesn't matter. He uses the same stale toolkit for every role. This dullness comes from an actor who found a winning formula early on and chose to polish it rather than evolve. He talks a big game about his range, yet keeps delivering the same robotic acting in massive blockbusters. It's a real shame because the guy actually has chops, he has the skill to do more, but he's simply never been willing to try. When you've been cashing massive checks for 20 years, it no longer matters if you're incapable of acting or just plain lazy. We're left with a career where the writing has to carry the burden because the star refuses to put in any effort. Thanks for stopping by. Catch you later.